on this week's episode of TalkStone, Blizzcon and the wrap for 2018's Hearthstone Global Games.
And as always, we present this week's well-played moment in, of course, meme history.
Everybody, get in here. Let's break down all the esports action. Welcome to TalkStone, your premier source for all things competitive Hearthstone news and analysis and eyebrow action. For people listening on audio, we're just excessively raising our eyebrows up and down. My name is Frodan.
And I'm TJ.
And together we are doing a post-BlizzCon special. We've been saying that, TalkStone has these, periodic special episode cadences. And we're going to go back to a regular schedule soon. But this is the last time I think we're going to do a special episode. And then we're going to actually go back to a regular schedule. We've been saying it for weeks, ever since playoffs, championships, and now BlizzCon.
In my heart, every episode of TalkStone is a special episode.
Every TalkStone episode is an instant classic.
But Dan, guess what?
What?
BlizzCon happened.
That's right. Just a couple days ago for us at the time of this recording. And a lot happened. Obviously, for most people, it was the big content announcement. What was coming up next for Hearthstone? And it was Rastakhan's Rumble, which, TJ, I love that trailer. I know that you hold some other ones really high in your heart. Everyone really loves, the Whispers of the Old Gods, or One Night in Karazhan is a favorite of mine and yours for a while. Knights of the Frozen Throne, one of the most epic. And, there's a lot of great Hearthstone trailers out there. I even like the Boomsday Project most recently. But Rastakhan's Rumble was so good to me. I don't know why particularly, but just everything resonated. The art, the animation, the song was great. And I like the theme because Stranglethorn was one of the areas I played the most in my time of World of Warcraft, so I liked it.
It's definitely in my top 10, Dan.
Out of 13 the trailers that are out there. Crazy to think about, right? 13 content / expansion / adventures that are being out. And I think a lot of people are looking forward to what the new mechanics are, as well as Rumble Run. That was probably, I'm a little bit biased because, I tend to like Hearthstone a little bit more than maybe some of the other Blizzard franchises out there. But, out of all the demos on the floor, TJ, I got to say the Hearthstone one was definitely the most engaging and fun. Maybe just because I felt like I wanted more time. I wanted more time to try out Diablo Immortal. I wanted more time to play WoW Classic. I just didn't get much because there's so many people queued up. They just kind of kicked us out after 20 minutes. I'm like, man, I barely finished a level in WoW Classic after dealing 20 damage to a gold ball. I kind of want to see what's more to it. But the Rumble Run was really fun, and it kind of reminded me of the good old days of Dual Class Arena, or just some of these other overpowered things, like Dungeon Run, right?
The good old days. It ended a week ago.
I guess. No, I meant last year's Dual Class Arena, where
okay.
There were some really gross things that happened back in Dual Class Arena because you could abuse really silly mechanics like Sorcerer's Apprentice and Unstable Evolution.
Yeah. It's the Rastakhan's Rumble should be a really fun expansion. I do think that there's other better trailers out there.
It's not your favorite, but
it's not my favorite.
But
I really like the vibe of it. Because, as you mentioned, I played a ton of World of Warcraft, so the Gurabashi Arena area always aesthetically was one of the coolest places, as well as Ungoro, which is one of the reasons why I liked Journey to Ungoro. Nothing will ever beat One Night in Karazhan, especially since I'm pretty sure we've told this story on TalkStone 3 times already of our time
TJ.
In China. Dan and I, right after Seat Story Cup, in 2016, whenever One Night in Karazhan was released?
2016.
We flew directly to China for the pre-release event, stayed in an exceptionally nice hotel in China for 3 days, and did a 30-minute show where they showed us the trailer for One Night in Karazhan 20 minutes before we went live. Dan and I both freaked out, and then we got to introduce Ben Brode onto the stage. One of the coolest experiences of my life.
Oh, yeah. Announcing stuff in China is always epic.
Yeah.
I mean, we were there for Karazhan. We were also there for the announcement of Knights of the Frozen Throne in China.
Yep.
And let me tell you, man, it's one of the loudest I've ever heard a crowd cheer. And I've been to BlizzCon. I've been to a bunch of World Championships for other games. And, China fans love the Warcraft property. I'm sure they went nuts over Warcraft 3 Reforged. I'm looking forward to that. A lot because that's what I grew up on playing with my friends, all those classic, Footman Frenzy mods and stuff. It was really fun. Anyways, not to get too carried away because we're here to talk about Hearthstone. This is not an all-access bonus content package here on TalkStone.
As much as me and Dan would love to do that.
TJ, rank all 13 Hearthstone trailers in order from top to bottom.
All right, let's go.
Right here, right now.
Maybe we'll save that for another episode.
Yeah.
Episode 85.
Our producer Nicole is writing that down as we speak. Episode 85 would be like 4 or 5 more trailers out by then, I think.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, it would be a couple years down the road. Assuming that TalkStone, knock on wood, cross your fingers, that lasts that long. In the meantime, we'll hold you over with some other discussion about competitive Hearthstone news and analysis. That is what we are here for, to talk about TalkStone. Hearthstone Global Games finished and wrapped in 2018. China comes out as number 1, defeating Brazil, New Zealand, and Norway, wrapping up the top 4. And, this is a really good top 4 semifinal finish for a lot of these teams here, because the narrative behind all of them is fantastic. So I was really happy to see going to day number 2, like all these teams, because I was okay and actually really glad for every team that could have potentially won it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. Brazil, they had probably the most dominant run throughout the course of the Hearthstone Global Games, ultimately finishing second, but that was only the second match that they lost throughout the course of the rest of the global games. And China taking it all. I think last year, we talked about this in the preview stream leading up to Blizzcon and the HGG finals. China last year, I think a lot of the fans were disappointed because it didn't seem like China was taking it seriously. But this year, obviously, great preparation, kind of the unique deck list, and overall just a fantastic kind of esports week/2 weeks. For China in general.
Yeah.
Invictus Gaming took the League of Legends World Championship over Fnatic. And we had like pen and paper in the World of Warcraft. Arena Championship take top 4 in a game where China has not succeeded very much in the past. We had China take the silver medal at the Overwatch World Cup.
That's right.
And, of course, taking the gold medal and the trophy for the Hearthstone Global Games finals. So just a really big weekend for China as a country in esports across the world.
Yeah, and especially for Blizzard titles and franchises, I feel like people, have this really grandiose image of Korea being like the best country or like one of the elites in anything esports related. But China's also been always quietly one of the most dominant countries out there too. And Hearthstone, not really the case. You look historically at all the HCT performances, and China has quite possibly the most star-studded lineup in HGG from that. I counted 8 HCT appearances, whether it's at a championship or a global finals, like a world championship. And, it has a lot of great experience, but yet for some reason, people still slept on them. They're like, yeah, well, I think at this point, we don't really think China has what it takes to contend all the time. And what's really cool is that not only did they shatter those expectations by being able to wipe out a lot of the difficult teams, they advanced first place in their group, having defeated New Zealand and Hong Kong, and then they beat Norway and Brazil, and those are some of the strongest teams out there. You look at Norway with Hunter Race and NTR, 2 players who are always constantly traveling, and Zorkthar and Colbane also making really good runs sometimes in the Europe region. You have Brazil with Race and Perna and Lucas. These are 3 players who are constantly challenging in playoffs for Americas, and Race even making it to the championship. So these are no pushover teams. Obviously, Hong Kong with Kin and Blitzchung, fantastic.
The Hearthstone gold medalist, Kin.
Hearthstone Asia Games gold medalist.
Yes.
Drew Higby from Hearthstone Esports always tells us to mention that.
Yeah.
It's almost his middle name at this point, legally changed. And, they had to go through New Zealand. So it felt like they represented their region really well by also beating every other region out there. I think a lot of times people think, bracket luck, maybe if they played a little bit more Europe or they played a little bit. They had to go through the who's who. And more importantly, too, is I feel like they did it in their own way. A lot of times when players find success, sometimes they say, you know what, I gave up trying to do my own thing and I just played the good decks. It's something you hear very often, actually, by some players who find a breakthrough of success. They're like, I stopped getting my own head, I checked my ego at the door, and I just brought decks that people said were really good, etc., and played well. China brought Quest Mage, and they won with it on stream almost every time.
Yes.
And it was very unique lines that they were taking. And what was crazy is that they also could have improved their play because of how unusual some of the situations were, but it also caused their opponents to misplay sometimes too, because they just were unsure about what Quest Mage can do in specific late game scenarios, especially when you're not using the Antonitis just to kill in one turn, right? You're trying to like play more for tempo or control the board to prevent dying. So I thought that this was a really special victory for China. the players themselves were telling me that this meant more than any individual HCT performance outside of winning the World Championship. Like if Omega Zero or Trunks was able to go from a championship and win the entire thing, that probably would have meant more. But outside of that, they said this was the best thing that could have ever happened to China, period. And I thought that was a really cool story.
Yeah, and before we go any further, how we arrived at Quest Mage or even Murloc Mage, which we saw a few times throughout the weekend. The HGG format, which is quite unique for people who maybe only tuned in for a little bit of the finals or not throughout the regular season of HGG. It's a 9-class format, so people submit a deck for each of the 9 classes before the tournament starts. They go through a pick and ban phase, so you see a lot of the stronger or more popular classes banned away, and then you pick classes also. So you're left with a lineup of 5, and then you predetermine the order of your matchups. So you have to get creative because you have to bring every class, and you have to account for all the possibilities.
Yeah. You heard from Hunter Ace last week. He's like, dude, I don't want to bring Murloc Mage, but I can't think of a better mage deck because they're not sure about Big Spell Mage's role in the metagame.
Yeah.
And, there's not too many more variants of mage that you see out there on ladder. But we all forgot Quest Mage and how it can be used as a controlled deck killer. Or so we thought until it ended up going up against other archetypes and still coming out on
basically
ahead.
Aggressive decks like even Warlock.
Beating aggro decks.
I think we've settled on the fact
decks.
that even Warlock's aggressive.
Yeah, and I am really proud of that fact. And whenever a team or a player is able to win in Hearthstone, but specifically stick to their guns, and do it in a very unique way, I think that's always something to celebrate. So yes, China gets a big victory. It's great for their country. It puts them on the map. It's great for the storytelling because I think most people just dismiss Chinese players whenever they go to the Choose Your Champion, or they're watching HCT. They're like, you know what, I've put so much expectation, and while some have performed very well, Jason Zhou got to 2 semifinals in Worlds, Taylor Celestial got to a grand finals in 2014, it just felt like for all their reputation and what our expectations of for China to have their own region because of their country and representation so high, it felt like it wasn't lined up until now. And I feel like this could be the start of something special for China. Maybe we start seeing China's performances in the winter season do really well and going into Worlds. Or perhaps maybe it's a flash in the pan and China gets a little bit complacent because they finally got that big victory. I hope that's not the case, but we have seen that in the past too.
Yeah, we've definitely seen it in the past. And, to mention a couple other countries that we didn't really talk about, Spain, who got knocked out, Singapore, who got knocked out, Bulgaria. All these teams were knocked out before that top 4. And Spain and Brazil were the 2 teams that during their offstream matches were just getting hyped.
I love it.
Every time we knew exactly how the game was going because they were very loud in this backstage area, cheering and whooping and clapping, and it was really cool to see that kind of passion. Spain, I think, in particular, every time I see AK Wonder, I don't even know him that well. I met him a while ago, but he always is open and super friendly, and that's the first thing he does whenever he walks into a room is goes over and greets everybody else. And so, honestly, I was disappointed to see them not do too well, but just seeing their passion for the game just makes me happy.
AK Wonder. He's so funny. It kind of reminds me of you in some ways, just like very approachable, fun.
Except I don't exclaim.
Yeah, I've never heard him exclaim except every time I've ever encountered him.
Yeah.
And I also want to give a shout out to Spain because they were one of the few teams that really utilized the very long and sometimes awkward period of time when they walk out onto the stage and then do something. Most people just stood there and just kind of like were focusing on the game, getting their head in the zone. Spain came out for their only match on stream, unfortunately. And did the Ginyu Force moves, and I love that. And I wish they let me in on that because there's only 4 members on the Spanish team.
The Ginyu
Force has 5, and I think they were missing Jeese. And I could do a good Jeese. I can do this really easily. And
wow, Dan, that was great.
Yeah, Goldo's like this, and Ginyu's like, hey, look, this is not my first time role-playing on the stage, TJ. I know my way around some weebness action. But yeah, it was really fun. Loved hanging out with the players. And I thought it was really funny, too, because Team Norway just kept hanging out in the caster area to the point where people were joking that there was like the player area and the Team Norway VIP room with the casters because Hunter Ace and all of them were just constantly going backstage and just talking with us and playing Hearthstone with us and memeing.
Yeah, it was separated by these curtains, like pipe and drape kind of curtains, and we would just be sitting chilling in the talent area, and then they just not even go around to like the actual entrance to the talent area. They would just jam their way through the curtains and be like, "Hey guys."
Yeah, like you're supposed to go through the proper entrance with security guard and badges. Everyone knows the security protocol and Blizzcon, and they even have these giant arrows and like boxes blocking you off. They just don't even care. They just go through the back,
just right through. But it was cool. I like them.
Anaheim Convention Center. Don't fire those people. It was really chill. We allowed those people to come back. But I gotta say that another comment I want to make is that having the weekend to tap into some of these players' mentality also showed me that we are on a great track with some of these players that are rising up. I am such a huge fan of Hunter Ace already, but hanging out with him this past weekend just made me feel like this kid is going to be the most special player Hearthstone ever known. It's obviously too early because we had some fantastic runs from great players over the course of years. You're talking about Pavel. You're talking about Firebat doing really well, like not just at their BlizzCon but afterwards. Tice being a 2-time European champion. Some of these most storied and like the strongest legacies that we have. I think Hunter Ace is going to crush all of them. Just listening to him talk about the game, listening to him talk about things outside the game. He's saying like how he's being very meticulous on how he takes care of his mental health and physical health, and how he's like managing all these different things. And this kid's 18. He's so disciplined, driven, motivated, and he just says all the right things. That makes me feel like he's actually like he's a little bit too perfect. So I'm scared that I'm like cursing him at this point. Like he'll never do anything or win anything again.
Well, we got a little taste of it last week when we had him on the show.
I know. It's great. And well, here's his greatest flaw, TJ, that he loves Hearthstone maybe a little too much because he keeps playing Hearthstone and talking about Hearthstone, and he hasn't returned my mouse that he borrowed last week when it came to ladder during the off-season, or the end of the season.
Yeah.
And he said he would return it.
I remember every day.
I need it because I need to play Hearthstone. I'm like, I need my mouse back, man.
Every day you would go down to the hotel lobby when we met to head over to the stage, and he'd be like, "You have my mouse?" He's like, "Oh, it's up in my room."
Yeah.
Do you need it now? And you'd be like, no, it's okay. Just give it to me tomorrow. And that just repeated for every single day.
Well, look, I wanted to specifically sell that mouse on eBay and be like, yeah, this is the mouse that Hunter Ace used to get in his number one or whatever top 10 finishes throughout the year, and just sell it for overinflated value.
He did get a top 25 with that mouse specifically.
He did.
He did. So
right. Be part of Hunter Ace's legacy.
Yeah, that's
for
right.
Cool $10,000.
Hunter Ace is also he's a little sneaky snake, because obviously there was a lot of Hearthstone Esports personnel at BlizzCon, and I feel like Hunter Ace spent 50% of his time trying to get them to reveal to him all of the plans for next year.
Set
it was ridiculous. He would come up and get all buddy with me. He'd warm me up with some Hearthstone talk.
Yep.
And then he'd try and sneak in a question about, hey TJ, what's going on next year?
Yeah, but it's funny too because he's really adorable kid. And
yeah.
He would do it in the most he'd do it in the most obvious way, and like it wasn't smooth at all.
Yeah.
Be like, hey TJ, how's your wife? How's your kid? Yeah. You sleep okay? Yeah. So if I were next year to make plans on February 19th, it's like what? Super obvious,
Already planning his schedule for next year, or trying to at least, which days he's going to play Hearthstone, which is probably just about every day.
The last thing I wanted to comment is that I feel like team tournaments also is one of the interesting dynamics of having someone play right across from you, is being able to read their face. But in 1v1 scenarios, I think players have gotten really good at maintaining a strong poker face, just like being stone cold. Any bad draw or anything like really crazy exciting happens, they usually contain themselves. But I always see like one or two members of teams tend to react very strongly to something like the three players can be really cool and focused in, but one guy goes like, oh, like off the draw. It's like, well, you're giving information. And when I talk to some of the players, like, yeah, like some people are like, yeah, Bulgaria, they're an underdog team, whatnot. But one of the things that they have to be careful about is that they're giving away their hand too much. And then like some players came backstage and they were saying against their matchup against Bulgaria, they're like, did they have like these 4 cards out of like the 7 they had? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, okay. Well, that's what we thought because of their physical reactions. So I thought that was an interesting dynamic that we didn't really play up too much. It's just like how to contain yourself, but more importantly, like all members have to be collectively in unison on their mentality. And those are small little edges that really played big factors in this entire tournament, I feel.
And China honestly did that. Pretty much straight face the whole time they were winning.
No, except for Love. Did you hear him yell all the time backstage? He was yelling too.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't.
He is so funny. He keeps saying like I don't know. It felt like he was personally trying to be like the spirit and passion of the team because he kept like just yelling really inspirational things in Chinese, like really ancient proverbs of like battle and war and perseverance, and like saying like, "This is the card you wanted. Well, I gave it to you. Now let's win." Like stuff like that, the equivalent of it. And I'm like, what is going? Like, I wish we could capture this audio on stream. I mean, we technically did have them on comm so they could hear each other, and maybe we do have recordings of it, but it was so epic. It felt like I was watching the Battle for Azeroth trailer with a third faction. It was the Horde, the Alliance, and Team China featuring
Team China from
yeah,
Hearthstone Global Games.
There's Sylvanas, and then there's Love going nuts.
Is Trunks a playable class now in Battle for Azeroth?
So. I would play a lot of Battle for Azeroth if Saiyans or a faction that you could.
His class specific trait is qualify for HGT.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know.
Their ancient artifact of power is the Z sword. But yeah, like HGG, to wrap this up very nicely, was a fantastic experience. I also said this on stage, and I want to give one final shout out. I loved how much the community rallied behind HGG Cheer. I know that a good portion of people were motivated by the rewards because it was very good value on the money spent for HGG Cheer. Like you would get 31 packs plus emotes and exclusive card back for like $28 equivalent. So in terms of pack value, a lot of people probably were motivated by that. But people were also encouraging other and banding behind it, and I felt like that was a really good pilot program, and more importantly, like I think it's a good reflection of how the community wants to support the competitive scene when it comes to those kinds of things. So I was really happy with the turnout there, and I couldn't be more excited for China, and I hope that their future competitors get inspired by their performance.
And they should, because it was great creative deck building, great play,
right.
2 3-0s on the final day to take it all. One of the quickest finals we've seen. Actually, probably the quickest match we've seen in HGG because those matches are long.
Right. So team tournaments in Hearthstone tend to take a lot longer than the normal 1v1 because you talk through plays, so naturally you have to listen to your teammates, and that you rope out a lot of turns. So, on average, a best of 5, we calculate to be 2 hours in Hearthstone. This was just straight up ended by like 1:30 p.m. and we expected to go till 1:30 because of all the 3-0s that happened. China 3-0 Norway, Brazil 3-0 New Zealand, and then China 3-0 Brazil. It was very, very one-sided, and it was a great tournament, and I think BlizzCon was a great time.
Before we wrap up BlizzCon, do you have any stories? Funny, emotional?
I got to see Derek Brown nourish for cards every single opportunity he ever got. And that just kind of became an inside joke amongst the casters because this guy would literally draw with Nourish on 5 like every time I turned my head. And he swore to me that he actually nourished for mana crystals at one point. And then he was even saying, like, if I draw Nourish soon, I'm going to nourish for crystals. And he ended up drawing for cards anyways.
Every single time.
Yeah, that was a fun. So we ended up just memeing him all the time, like, Derek, always draw cards with Nourish Brown. And that just kind of evolved that like an inside joke. So next time you guys see Derek or get a chance to talk to him or message him online, just, always jab him for that.
Yeah, and probably will turn out that he nourished for cards sometime within the past hour.
It's not really that funny until you start seeing it happen, and then more importantly, seeing Derek's reaction because he makes it great.
Yeah.
What do you think about my outfits this weekend?
Oh, man, that was – okay, well, that's just a story within itself, just Dan's outfit. And – I don't know. It just evolved over the course of the 2 days. Dan brought his jackets in on one of our rehearsal days,
right,
and just unveiled them out of his wardrobe bag. And I saw the shoulder pads, and Dan goes, "Is this okay?" And so part of one of my responsibilities was I had to get everybody's outfits approved.
Right.
And so I snapped a picture of Dan's jacket, and I was like, just in case somebody says no, I'm going to say that I forgot. Because I wanted to see that jacket, but everybody knows.
Yeah, it was great.
I even asked the person that needed to approve all those jackets, and they said, we don't need to approve Frodan's. we just know already that whatever he wears is going to be fine regardless.
But that being said, I don't think I can top that. I will say that right here on record, TJ, that I've peaked, and it's all downhill from here.
Dan.
And if you challenge me to go to even higher heights, to soar even, and to go even further beyond, don't wish for that, TJ, because you can't take that back.
A wise 18-year-old Norwegian fellow once told me, if you work hard enough, anything is possible.
A wise 18-year-old once said, hey, can I borrow a mouse? Okay, so that wraps up all of BlizzCon HCG. Hope we told you some fun stories behind the scenes stuff. If you guys never get a chance to check out BlizzCon, it is just something special. And I think if you have a chance to ever come out, you really should. And the nice thing about the Hearthstone community in particular is just how inclusive that they are. I see all these top players, Saiyan, Fino, Hunter Ace, and all these people that were there at the event, or even just like, our previous champions, Osaka and all them, they were chilling with just anybody that was around them. Sometimes when you go to these events, it's a little bit difficult to feel like, there's like a glass wall between you and the players. You don't want to interrupt them, or you feel like, you go up and just harass them for an autograph or a picture and that's it. But Hearthstone people will always take the time to chill and hang out. I mean, I've seen, Firebat buy rounds for random fans they just met for like the first 10 minutes. Like, we have some really cool people, and I am so grateful that we have a culture within our community to just welcome everybody, just like what the game tries to do. It's like there's always one more seat at the tavern or around the hearth. And if you're ever out at an event, always stop by to say hi to me and TJ, Kibler, any player. They're always so open to talk and hang out with anybody.
A single tear rolled down my cheek, Frodan, at the end of that speech.
For me as well. And with that sentiment, let's go ahead and also preview the tour, which is going to be airing after this show that features an inside look at the Summer Championship.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the HCT Summer Championship for 2018.
En todos los tours top, digamos, de la segunda temporada ya terminaron todos.
O sea, en el americano clasificaron. Así que eso igual fue como bajón. Estaba difícil igual.
Competing at this tournament is more important than tour stops for me because if you get top 4, it qualifies you for the World Championship.
Is it really the year of killing all day? Well, I suppose today we're going to find out.
Welcome back to TalkStone. Hope you guys are pumped for the tour episode 4. And I think I am because it's got, well, I know you are, TJ.
I am definitely pumped.
Someone that you may have heard of, Killing All Day.
Yeah.
But, the Summer Championships, in hindsight, was very interesting to think about because of what ended up happening. Europe dominated really well. Killing All Day got, kind of snuck through there. But it's interesting in the context of what's been happening since then. I feel like, Europe still, of course, does really well in a lot of events, but remember, the Fall Championship had 0 Europeans go through. We had 3 Americas player and 1 Asia-Pacific player in Blood Trail. And I like that China won this whole Hearthstone Global Games. So, everyone's kind of been putting their region on the map, really putting the rest of the Hearthstone world on notice. And I think that makes it just much more interesting as opposed to like, well, we all know Europe's the best, so it's about who's going to win from Europe at this World Championship. Yeah. I think the way the field's playing out has been really exciting.
Watch the episode. You'll find out all you need to know.
Yeah. And just like we do in the back room of an HCT stage, we too will continue to meme today. It's time, TJ, for meme history. This week's meme history, TJ, we go through an old one, but a good one, and also one that doesn't necessarily apply to just Hearthstone, so feel free to have creative license to use this meme for anything you want to replace it with. Like all good memes, it's versatile, and it's also timeless. It's a play on the idea that Hearthstone is free to play as a digital card game that you can download anywhere, but more importantly about people trying to abide by that and not spend money as either a challenge or a real-life restriction because of budgetary concerns. And this, in my opinion, started back in the day when people would ask other expert players or streamers or anything on the forums about possible budget substitutions for like legendaries or epics you don't have, and people tended to tag their posts or include it in their preface as saying, "By the way, I'm a free-to-play player, so please keep that in mind when you're just suggesting putting all these other legendary cards or epics that I don't have." And that kind of eventually evolved into people using free-to-play, by the way, as kind of like either a very serious statement, kind of like you're a vegan and you're just letting people know that you're free-to-play, by the way. Like, this is a choice that I've made, that I'm an enlightened human being for not having spent a single dollar on Hearthstone, and I've achieved the elusive status of the legend card back, and you are still spending lots of money as a whale and stuck in the pits known as rank 5 dad legend. There's some people that kind of have that weird
the pride.
Euphoria.
it's like a prideful thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I get it. It's also a sense of pride and accomplishment.
But then there's the other side
That's
of the coin.
another meme for all those people out there. Sorry. Continue, DJ.
Then there's the other side of the coin where other people use it to mock the
Yes.
people that are proud about not having to have spent $1 on the game. And I just think this meme kind of goes back. I mean, we could go back for a very long time.
Right. This was before Hearthstone.
Before Hearthstone, there was like a big free-to-play movement where games started to, when we were kids, it was just you wanted a game, you went out, you bought it from the store, and you brought it home, you installed it on your PC with a CD, and you played it.
CD? What about floppy disks? Or cartridges they used to put into your... Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
When they wouldn't work, you'd pull it out and blow on it and like... You don't remember?
When I was a kid, I programmed my own games.
I played StarCraft on the Nintendo 64, TJ. And I had to take that out of my N64, blow on the cartridge a few times, and like do all those weird... Some people were like, how do you fix a CD that can't be read? Like a disk skip error?
Yeah.
People would like suggest the weirdest stuff, like put peanut butter on it and like wipe it clean or something, so that way it like smooths out the disc reading device. I don't know, but that was what we did back in the day. This is like the 90s. Anyways, we're getting a little bit sidetracked from the meme history. The by the way was used to kind of like be sarcastic about a lot of comments. So one like easy way is like to just say anything by the way. So it'd be like #1 ranked player, by the way, and it's like Hunter Ace making a misplay, or Orange actually had a few plays recently where that's like one of the most winning players in Hearthstone, by the way, and it's like Orange missing a Hunter power lethal because he's like on tracking, he's completely distracted by the choices. So people use that for a lot of things, so that's the versatility of this meme. But specifically when people talk about budget costs or like discounts on packs or anything Dust related, they always talk about being free to play.
We hope this edition of Meme History helped to make the Hearthstone community a more inclusive place for all, by the way.
It's been a really fun episode, but it's going to be a little shorter, so this is our last segment that we're doing for today in this special post-BlizzCon episode of TalkStone with the well-played moment.
Boop, boop. Nope, wrong music.
No, wrong music. But this week's well-played moment is the Game 1 semifinal of China versus Norway. This is one that I think a lot of people who watched will know exactly what we're talking about. It's Quest Mage versus Even Warlock. And, we highlighted Quest Mage earlier in this episode, talking about how it was awesome for China to be able to perform really well with it and win on stream. But more importantly, to see some really creative lines and perhaps justify why, for some reason, Disguised Toast would not play anything but this deck for like months. Back when he was, really rising and soaring in popularity on Twitch for the first time. He was known as the Quest Mage God, but that's because it provided so many interesting puzzles to solve, and I think we got a taste of exactly that during this game that China was playing against Norway, under heavy pressure from the Even Warlock. Set the scene, TJ.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to set the scene. It was the Even Warlock for Norway and obviously the Quest Mage for China.
Right.
And Quest Mage nowadays is much different than it once was. It used to have a pretty defined win condition, right? Where it has a defined win condition now, but the way it gets there is much, much different. And there's a lot of improvisation that has to happen. And that's exactly what China did in this turn. They were facing what was lethal damage, effectively, on the board on the other side. And they didn't have Archmage Antonitis in their hand, so their win condition was not there, but they didn't have a choice. Since they were facing lethal damage on the other side, they had to go for it. So they played their Sorcerer's Apprentice, play double Research Project, get an Astral Rift, which draws you 2 random minions, which gave them a Hooked Reaver. So what they had to do in this situation was finish the quest, get an extra turn's worth of mana with the Sorcerer's Apprentice on board, draw a bunch of cards with double Research Project, and then it ends with the Rope Burning on their second turn, where they Frostbolt themselves in the face, Hooked Reaver, and then Molten Reflection Hooked Reaver. It was just absolutely insane.
Yeah, it reminded me of the BlizzCon play from 2015 where Osaka and Tice were playing the Freeze Mage Mirror, and very counterintuitively, Osaka uses the Mage Hero power on himself in order to make Pyroblast a lot weaker. If you put yourself at a certain life total, your opponent, when they pop the Ice Block, would be the health that you get set at. So if you Pyroblast someone at 10, they'll stay at 10 if Ice Block was up. And Osaka did a play like that. And it was the same thing with this play where it was like you get the Frostbolt yourself. Frostbolt's one of the best tools as a defensive mage player to not only kill minions but also stall on the board. But you use it on your own life total so you can go below 15, or I think they're at 14 life, and then play the Hooked Reaver and Molten Reflection the Hooked Reaver to stop the aggression because you knew that you weren't going to win. Usually when you take that extra turn with Time Warp, the game's over because you're trying to play Antonitis. But just like Malagos Druid and other great combo decks in its prime, it was so cool to see such an unusual way for you to get to that lethal point. Or more importantly, just solve a board state that seemed impossible to overcome. It was kind of like a Boomsday Lab puzzle, if you will, like learning how to stabilize and learn how to control. And the crazy thing is, even though this is a really sick play and very unusual and counterintuitive, they could have done it even better, like a one step further.
Yeah.
Because they had Spellbender up. And if they wanted to protect their Hooked Reaver, they could have traded in an additional Flame Elemental on the board to have that Spellbender activate. Because like Noble Sacrifice and Mind Control Tech, if there's no space on the board, the thing won't appear on your side. So they needed to actually free up their space. So even though this was a great moment, very well played, it could even be refined further, which goes to show you the complexity that exists in a deck like Quest Mage, because there's so many weird things that you have to account for. Because that Spellbender was also generated randomly. It wasn't from something that they planned with, hence why they had to make so many ad hoc, like spontaneous, on-the-fly decisions.
The funny thing was, though, filling up their board actually worked out for them.
Right.
Because Norway ended up spellstoning into a minion, which on a full board does not proc Spellbender. So Norway was convinced that secret was something else.
Right.
So they missed a lethal opportunity on the following turn, or 2 turns later, because they had thought it was something else because their board was full.
Yeah.
Spellbender didn't go off.
Exactly.
They assumed it was Ice Barrier Vaporize, missed lethal damage. So they probably could have technically done it better, right?
Right.
Trying to protect from a Spellstoner or something like that may have been the way that they won.
But it worked out.
It worked out in the end for them. So for the way that it played out, it ended up being like a perfect sequence of plays for them. They ended up with even more damage than they needed. They eventually drew Archmage Antonitis and were able to get additional burn damage. So really cool to see. And we don't have large sample size at all, but I can guarantee you that even Warlock probably has a pretty good matchup against Quest Mage currently in almost every iteration. So the fact that they brought a creative deck, the fact that they had to improvise and make a creative play and end up winning in a matchup where you never expect them to win, and 3-0 Norway in the semifinals and 3-0 Brazil in the finals. Everything was just well played about this moment.
Excellent wrap-up, TJ. I'm just going to add one addendum to that. Hunter Ace wants everyone to know to not ooze Aluneth if they're about to fatigue.
Yes.
That was something that Norway did to just directly throw. I think almost everyone across the board agrees that was Norway giving China the game at that point. A couple of other mistakes probably could have been avoided, like, the spell breaker scenario where they could have maybe gotten lethal. But you can't really blame them necessarily for having that information and wanting to hedge against the worst case. They don't want to lose on the spot. But, if they're going to draw themselves willingly into fatigue that deep and they were just a few points off damage, it's like, let them do it. But it was a great, well-played moment, and also just a testament to China doing something very different while having the skills to back it up. Well played. That does it for us today, TJ. Thanks for joining me, as always. That's it for this crazy schedule of the fall season. We had September playoffs, October championship and tour stops, and then BlizzCon.
Yeah.
in November with kind of like other stuff like TwitchCon mixed in or the Gold Rush that we did on Twitch. So a lot of chaos and finally get a little bit of breather. And something to note, too, is that November is, I believe, the last month for points to be accumulated for the competitive year.
That's correct, yeah. Which means that we'll have our regional points leaders locked in.
We're going to Worlds?
Yeah, the regional points leaders that will be going to Worlds. Locked in at the very beginning of December.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. You can find more episodes of TalkStone on twitch.tv/playhearthstone every other week at 6 p.m. Pacific, and the audio version on SoundCloud and iTunes. If you want more Hearthstone esports news, analysis, and updates, check out playhearthstone.com/esports for all things Hearthstone. We'll see you next time in the tavern.